Level 0. The dive instructor gives the signal. Thumbs up, descend slowly. Equalize your ears every few meters or you'll regret it later. 6 meters down and the world still makes sense. Fish scatter in front of your mask. The reef below glows in shades of purple and orange that look photoshopped but aren't. And if something goes wrong, the boat is right there on the surface, maybe 30 seconds of hard swimming away. This is the part of the ocean that shows up in documentaries and vacation photos. The version we've convinced ourselves represents the whole thing. It doesn't. 90% of all marine life lives in this narrow band. Dolphins, sea turtles, coral reefs packed so dense with organisms they look like underwater cities, all of it crammed into a zone that represents less than 2% of the ocean's total volume. Everything else, the other 98%, is somewhere below your fins right now, and most of it has never seen sunlight. The record for the deepest freedive on a single breath sits at 214 meters. The guy who did it said the last 30 meters felt like drowning in reverse, his body trying to shut down while his brain screamed at him to turn around. He made it. Barely. That record doesn't even get you out of this first layer. Because at 200 meters, something changes. The reds disappear first, then orange, then yellow. Colors drain out of the water like someone slowly turning down a dimmer switch on reality. And by the time you hit the bottom of this zone, the ocean has gone from tropical postcard to cold blue murk, and the temperature has dropped 15 degrees without asking permission. Pressure doubles, then doubles again. Ears pop, sinuses ache. Joints feel wrong in ways that are hard to describe but impossible to ignore. And this is still the shallow end. The next layer has been waiting in the gloom the entire time, and it's where the ocean stops cooperating with human biology altogether. Level 1. Someone in marine biology named this the dysphotic zone, which translates to bad light. And honestly, that might be the only straightforward thing science has ever called anything. Sunlight reaches here, technically. Enough to ruin your night vision, but not enough to actually see by. Just a faint blue wash that creates shapes without details. Most animals down here have eyes so grotesquely oversized, they look like cartoon characters drawn by someone who fundamentally misunderstood anatomy. And they need every square millimeter of that retinal surface just to detect the glow filtering down from above. Some gave up on eyes entirely. The ocean at this depth has easier ways to navigate. Electrical fields, vibrations, chemical gradients, anything that doesn't require photons because photons are in short supply and getting shorter. The pressure here will compact an empty oil drum into something the size of a basketball. Human lungs collapse around 45 meters, 150 feet. At 200 meters, your ribcage folds inward like it's spring-loaded, sinuses implode, and the air in your skull compresses so violently that your eardrums rupture before your brain finishes processing what's happening. The hatchetfish looks like someone designed a fish using only a protractor and spite. Body so thin it's translucent, eyes locked upward scanning for prey silhouetted against the fading light above. The fangtooth has teeth so massive it literally cannot close its mouth, just swims around permanently grimacing. The barrelay has a completely transparent skull with tubular eyes that swivel inside its own head like a periscope, which sounds like bad science fiction until you see footage of it doing exactly that. These aren't deformities. This is what peak performance looks like when the environment asks impossible questions. Every horrifying adaptation is an answer the ocean demanded, but there's still light here. Faint, useless, barely registering on instruments, but present. Still a connection, however thin, to the surface world. That connection is about to snap completely. Level 2. Essentially, no sunlight penetrates this depth. Not dim light, not filtered light, nothing. The aphotic zone means without light. And the distinction matters because this isn't nighttime. It's the permanent absence of the thing that powers 99% of life on Earth. If you were down here with your headlamp switched off, the black wouldn't be the lack of something. It would be something you could almost feel pressing back. Pressure exceeds 40 megapascals. A car tire holds about 220 kilopascals. An unprotected human body would compact into a space roughly the size of a large watermelon before the nervous system could finish its final signals. Things live here anyway. The anglerfish hunts using a bioluminescent lure that dangles in front of its face like a lantern, and prey swim toward it thinking it's food or a potential mate. And the anglerfish opens its mouth, which unhinges to an angle that looks mechanically implausible, and swallows them whole. The males are so much smaller than the females that when they find a mate, they bite into her flesh and fuse permanently, dissolving their own organs until they're just a parasitic sac hanging off her body. Giant squid migrate through this zone. Longer than a school bus, eyes the size of dinner plates, tentacles lined with rotating serrated hooks. For most of human history, they were considered myths, until 1873 when a dead one washed ashore in Newfoundland, and scientists realized the folklore had been lowballing the actual measurements. We've sent cameras down here. We've sent submersibles with titanium hulls built to withstand pressures that would implode a nuclear submarine. We've recorded footage of shapes moving past the lights, too large to fit in frame, gone before the autofocus could lock on. Some of that footage gets classified as unidentified in analysis logs. 95% of the ocean remains unexplored. Most of that percentage exists at this depth or lower, which means you could hide entire ecosystems down here and nobody would know until a research vessel got lucky. The next zone covers more of Earth's surface than all the continents combined, and most people have never heard of it. Level 3. The abyssal plains cover more of Earth's surface than every continent combined, which is a fact nobody mentions in geography class. Every mountain, forest, city, and desert you've ever set foot in, all of it together, occupies less surface area than the flat, featureless sediment stretching across the deep seafloor for thousands of uninterrupted kilometers. The pressure reaches 75 megapascals. Submarines built to operate here have walls thicker than a human torso and viewing ports made from solid acrylic domes. This is over 700 atmospheres pushing inward from every direction at once. The temperature hovers just above freezing. The seafloor is blanketed in something called ooze, a literal description. The gradual accumulation of dead plankton, decomposed fish, organic debris drifting down at roughly 1 centimeter every 1,000 years. The ooze sitting at the bottom right now started sinking when Julius Caesar was still alive. Life moves in slow motion because speed requires energy. The tripod fish balances on elongated fins and waits, sometimes for weeks for something edible to drift close enough. Sea cucumbers vacuum the sediment for microscopic nutrition. Hagfish, boneless scavengers that produce slime in quantities that suffocate predators, burrow into dead whale carcasses and spend years eating them from the inside out. When a whale dies and sinks to this depth, it becomes an entire ecosystem. Researchers call it a whale fall, attracting crabs, worms, bacteria, all adapted to breaking down blubber and bone, feeding off it for decades. Some species exist exclusively on whale falls, waiting in the abyss for something enormous to die within range. If it doesn't happen, the local population goes extinct. No storms, no seasons, just cold, dark, crushing pressure, consistent for millions of years. And then the seafloor just ends. Not gradually, not a gentle slope tapering into deeper water. A vertical drop, straight down, into trenches so deep that when we first mapped them, the sonar returns seemed wrong enough that crews assumed equipment failure. Level 4, named after Hades, Greek underworld, land of the dead. The Hadal Zone exists only in ocean trenches, geological scars where tectonic plates collide and one slides beneath the other. There are 33 documented trenches, mostly around the Pacific Rim. Some have been visited twice. Some have been visited never. The Mariana Trench holds the record. If you sank Mount Everest into it, the summit would still sit over 1.6 kilometers underwater. Pressure at the bottom exceeds 110 megapascals. Imagine 50 jumbo jets balanced on your thumbnail. Glass shatters, steel bends. The few submersibles rated for this depth are essentially titanium spheres with reinforced portholes and life support good for maybe 6 hours before the crew surfaces or dies. Whichever comes first. James Cameron went down solo in 2012, spent 3 hours filming, and when he surfaced he described it as lunar desolate. The most unsettling part wasn't what he saw, but what he didn't see. And yet, amphipods the size of dinner plates, snailfish with bodies so soft and gelatinous they flex under pressure instead of fighting it, microbial mats coating the rocks, bacteria metabolizing sulfur and methane, chemicals lethal to surface life, thriving in conditions that would sterilize a laboratory. Some trenches have hydrothermal vents, volcanic fissures where superheated water, sometimes topping 370 degrees Celsius, erupts into near-freezing seawater and creates chemical reactions violent enough to support entire ecosystems. Tube worms, clams, crabs, clustered in densities rivaling coral reefs, feeding off bacteria that metabolize the minerals pouring directly from the Earth's mantle. We discovered these vents in 1977. Before that, the scientific consensus held that all life required sunlight through a food chain. These ecosystems proved that completely wrong. Life doesn't need the sun, it just needs energy. But there's something deeper than the trenches themselves. A single point at the bottom of the deepest trench, and it took us until 1960 to reach it. Level 5. Challenger Deep, southern end of the Mariana Trench, deepest surveyed point in any ocean on the planet. Consensus depth sits around 11,034 meters, just under 11 kilometers straight down. 4 people have been there. Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh in 1960, James Cameron in 2012, Victor Vescovo in 2019. Fewer people than have walked on the moon. The moon is 384,400 kilometers away, and it's somehow easier to reach than the bottom of our own ocean. When Picard and Walsh hit the bottom in the Trieste, they looked out the porthole and saw flatfish, just lying there, existing where biology textbooks said existence wasn't possible. They wrote it in the log, surfaced, and spent the rest of their careers defending that observation. Victor Vescovo found plastic, candy wrappers, a plastic bag, human garbage at the deepest point in the ocean, 11 kilometers down, in a place fewer people have visited than have left Earth's orbit. And somehow, we still beat them there with our trash. The pressure is extreme enough that water stops behaving normally. Molecules pack tighter, resist differently, break the fluid dynamics models built for shallower depths. And there's sound. Whales sing across thousands of kilometers. Shrimp colonies snap loudly enough to jam sonar. Earthquakes rumble through the crust. At Challenger Deep, researchers have recorded sounds that don't match anything in the catalog. Long, low-frequency pulses repeating at irregular intervals. Some think geological, some think biological. Most just log it as unidentified and move on. Because the ocean doesn't stop at the seafloor. Beneath the sediment, beneath the crust, water keeps moving, keeps flowing through cracks and fissures that go deeper than any drill has ever reached. And in those cracks, isolated from the surface for millions of years, things are alive. Level 6. In 2002, a research team drilling into the seafloor off Newfoundland pulled up a core sample from 300 meters below the ocean floor. It contained bacteria, living bacteria, not fossils, not spores waiting for better conditions, actively metabolizing microorganisms sealed off from the surface for over 100 million years, surviving on minerals in the rock with no sunlight, no oxygen, nothing recognizable as a food source. We keep finding life. Current estimates suggest the subseafloor biosphere contains more biomass than all the life in the rest of the ocean combined. An entire shadow ecosystem living in microscopic pores between rocks, reproducing so slowly that a single generation might span thousands of years. Some metabolize methane, some metabolize sulfur. Some appear to be extracting electrons directly from iron and manganese, reactions that yield barely enough energy to justify the word alive. And yet they've been doing it since before dinosaurs. They reproduce slower than tectonic plates move. Culturing them in a lab requires decades of waiting for a single cell division. We've found them over 1.6 kilometers, 1 mile beneath the ocean floor. And estimates put the biosphere extending at least 4 kilometers down, possibly all the way to where temperatures hit the thermal limit of organic molecules, around 120 degrees Celsius. We haven't hit that boundary yet. Every time we drill expecting sterile rock, we pull up samples crawling with life from branches of the evolutionary tree that split off billions of years ago. One more level that doesn't appear on any ocean map, doesn't show up on sonar, didn't exist until we created it ourselves. Level 7. In 1970, the Soviet Union started drilling, not into the ocean, into solid ground. On the Kola Peninsula in northwestern Russia, chasing one question: what's actually down there? They drilled for 24 years. By 1994, they'd reached 12,262 meters, deepest hole humans have ever made. They were aiming for 15 kilometers, but the drill kept breaking. Temperatures hit 180 degrees Celsius. The drill bit melted. Shaft walls collapsed, and then they found water. 12 kilometers down and rock sealed off for over 1 billion years, they hit superheated mineralized water, moving through microscopic fractures in the crust. The water contained life. Fossilized microorganisms, sure, but also chemical signatures indicating active biological processes in conditions no surface organism could survive. The Kola borehole is sealed now, capped in 1994, the site rusting slowly into the forest. But the hole is still there, still the deepest scar humanity has ever carved into the planet. And it didn't even crack through the crust, didn't reach the mantle. The ocean is 11 kilometers deep at Challenger Deep. The Kola borehole went 12 kilometers down through solid rock. Both found life where it wasn't supposed to exist.